Today, we're diving into the story of the BM-13 Katyusha, a weapon so feared that German soldiers called it Stalin's organ, not for its music, but for the haunting screech of its rockets that brought psychological terror to the battlefield. From its secret development to its devastating impact on World War II, this is the story of how a simple truck-mounted rocket launcher became one of history's most influential weapons. In the late 1930s, while Hitler's Germany was building its war machine, Soviet engineers were working in absolute secrecy on a weapon that would later help defeat it. At the Reactive Scientific Research Institute in Moscow, a team led by brilliant engineers Nikolai Tikhomirov and Georgy Langemak was about to revolutionize warfare. Their first breakthrough came in March 1928 when they successfully launched a solid-fuel rocket that flew an impressive 1,300 meters. But this was just the beginning. The team knew they needed something more powerful, more terrifying, and most importantly, something that could be mass-produced quickly. The result was something no one had ever seen before, a simple but devastating weapon that would later be known as the Katyusha. But here's what's fascinating. The weapon was so secret that even the soldiers who operated it didn't know its real name. In official documents, they were simply called Guards mortars or Kostakov guns. The Soviets were so protective of their new weapon that each launcher came with built-in explosives. The crews had strict orders. If capture seemed imminent, they were to destroy their own vehicles. The Germans were so desperate to capture one intact that they offered iron crosses to any soldier who could secure a single launcher. What made the Katyusha truly revolutionary wasn't just its ability to fire rockets, it was the sheer scale of destruction it could deliver. Each M13 rocket was a masterpiece of efficient design. 80 centimeters long, 13.2 centimeters in diameter, and packed with 4.9 kilograms of high explosives. But the real terror came from numbers. A single Katyusha truck could carry up to 16 rockets. Now, imagine a battery of 4 trucks firing simultaneously. In just 7 to 10 seconds, they could deliver 4.35 tons of high explosives over an area of 400,000 square meters. To achieve the same effect, you'd need 72 conventional artillery guns firing at once. The weapon's psychological impact was perhaps even more devastating than its physical destruction. The rockets created a distinctive howling sound as they flew through the air, a terrifying shriek that German soldiers would never forget. One German veteran wrote in his diary, "The sound alone was enough to break men's minds. First the howling, then the explosions coming from everywhere at once. There was nowhere to hide." The Katyusha had another advantage that made it particularly lethal: mobility. Unlike traditional artillery, which needed time to set up and dig in, a Katyusha battery could drive up, unleash hell, and disappear within minutes. The Germans called this shoot and scoot tactics, and it made the weapon nearly impossible to counter. The Katyusha's first combat test came at a critical moment. On July 14, 1941, as German forces seemed unstoppable in their advance toward Moscow, Captain Ivan Flyorov's experimental battery of 7 launchers rolled into position near the town of Rudnya in Smolensk Oblast. What happened next would become legendary. The Katyushas opened fire on a German convoy gathered in the marketplace. The effect was devastating. Tanks exploded, vehicles were torn apart, and the surviving German soldiers fled in panic. They had never seen anything like it, and this was just the beginning. Stalin immediately recognized the weapon's potential. On August 8, 1941, he ordered the formation of 8 Special Guards mortar regiments. Each regiment had 36 launchers, enough firepower to devastate entire enemy divisions. By the end of 1941, the Soviets had deployed 554 launchers across the Eastern Front. While German weapons like the Tiger tank were expensive and complicated to produce, the Katyusha was the opposite. Its simple design meant it could be manufactured in small factories that had been evacuated to the Ural Mountains, far from German bombers. As the war progressed, the Katyusha evolved into an entire family of weapons. The original BM-13 was joined by the lighter BM-8 and the massive BM-31. Each had its own role on the battlefield. The BM-8 was small enough to mount on jeeps and light tanks, perfect for supporting rapid advances. Its 82mm rockets might have been smaller, but they could still saturate an area with explosives. The standard BM-13 became the workhorse of Soviet rocket artillery. Mounted on sturdy trucks like the American-supplied Studebaker US-6, it could deliver its devastating payload and quickly relocate before the enemy could respond. But the most terrifying was the BM-31. Introduced in 1944, it fired massive 300mm rockets that carried warheads equivalent to battleship shells. When these monsters hit their target, even German heavy tanks could be tossed around like toys. A Katyusha battery was a masterpiece of organized chaos. 4 firing vehicles, 2 reload trucks, and 2 support trucks worked together like a deadly orchestra. Each firing vehicle had a crew of 6 men who had to work with clockwork precision. The process was both simple and complex. The crews would drive into position, calculate their firing data, raise the launch rails, and prepare for fire. When the command came, all launchers would fire almost almost simultaneously. In just 7 to 10 seconds, the entire battery would empty its racks, sending a wall of rockets toward the enemy. But speed was crucial for survival. Within minutes of firing, the crews had to lower the rails, jump in their trucks, and race to a new position at least 10 kilometers away. Enemy artillery would inevitably target their launch site, but by then the Katyushas would be long gone. By the war's end, the scale of Katyusha production was staggering. The Soviets had manufactured over 10,000 launchers and millions of rockets, but these weren't just impressive numbers on paper. They translated into devastating battlefield results. During the Battle of Berlin alone, over 500 Katyushas fired an estimated 250,000 rockets in just 2 weeks of fighting. In major offensives, Soviet commanders would mass their Katyusha regiments to create what they called hurricane bombardments, continuous barrages that could last for hours. The weapon's effectiveness came not just from its destructive power, but from its psychological impact. German soldiers dreaded the distinctive shriek of incoming Katyusha rockets. The Katyusha's influence extended far beyond World War II. Its success spawned an entirely new category of weapons, the multiple rocket launcher. Today, almost every major military force in the world operates systems descended from the Katyusha's design. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union developed even more powerful rocket artillery systems like the BM-21 Grad and BM-27 Uragan. These modern successors could fire rockets with cluster munitions, mines, and even chemical warheads. But perhaps most surprisingly, the Katyusha's legacy lives on in conflicts today. The weapon's simple, effective design has made it a favorite of armies and militant groups worldwide. From Vietnam to the Middle East, the distinctive howl of rocket artillery continues to strike fear into those who hear it. The weapon's historical significance was finally recognized in 1991 when Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev posthumously awarded the title of Hero of Socialist Labor to the original design team. These brilliant engineers, Klaymanov, Langemak, Luzhin, Petropavlovsky, Slonimer, and Tikhomirov, had created not just a weapon, but a revolution in warfare. The BM-13 Katyusha represents something rare in military history, a weapon that was both revolutionary and simple, devastating yet economical, technologically advanced but reliable. From its secret development in the 1930s to its thunderous debut in 1941, the Katyusha helped turn the tide of World War II and change the face of modern warfare forever. When we look at modern rocket artillery systems, from America's HIMARS to Russia's latest Smerch launchers, we're seeing the evolution of an idea born in those desperate days of 1941. The Katyusha proved that sometimes the most effective weapons aren't the most complicated or expensive. They're the ones that combine simplicity with sheer terrifying effectiveness. So what do you think about this legendary weapon? Would you have wanted to be part of a Katyusha crew, knowing you were operating one of the most feared weapons of World War II? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos about history's most influential weapons.